Koine Greek, and welcome. Today we're going to be taking a look at John chapter 6, verses 11 through 13. But first, last time in John chapter 6. Here is our rubric. Let's go ahead and get started. Elabin un tous artus ho Jesus, kai eucrer charistes diadoken tois anakemenois, homoios kai ekton opsarion hoson elthelon, hos de en plesa thestran, legetois mathetais autu, suna gagete ta periseu santa klasmata, hina meti apothlethetai, sun egagon un kai egemisan dedoka kophinos klasmaton ekton pente arton, ton kritheionon, ha eperiseusan tois bebreos gosin. Boy, that was hard. Taking a look at verse 11, we begin with our verb. Note that we have the augmenting vowel here, and this is from lambano, so we don't have the first principal part. Instead, we have the aorist stem with the epsilon nu at the end there. That's going to be then the third singular aorist active indicative. I used way more words to say that than was necessary. Took un, therefore, tous artus, which we saw beforehand, so omicron, upsilon, sigma for both of those is accusative plural, and then artus, because of the article, is either going to be masculine or it can only be masculine because in the plural accusative would be ta, so masculine there, and it's loaves of bread. Ho Jesus, our subject, which we don't need to parse. Kai eucharistes with the alpha sigma, we know that's a nominative singular, so this is from eucharisteo, so that eta sigma tells us that we have the aorist stem, and the alpha sigma at the end is going to be a participial ending, so nominative singular, masculine, aorist, active, participle. Having given thanks, then we get to the main verb of this clause after the kai. Diadoken, we've got an augmenting vowel after the prefixed preposition. Epsilon nu, so it's going to be the same form as this one, so I'm not going to bother parsing it, but instead just draw this over. Tois anakemenois, omicron, iota, sigma for article, and our participle here as the indirect object of the verb of giving, which is what it wants. It's going to take a accusative, which we can assume tous artus again. Homoios tells us there's a new clause, so we have to draw that into this clause here. But dative, plural, and this is going to be masculine generic for all of the people there, which we saw in the previous page. And anakemenois, this is the present stem for k because the epsilon iota is still there rather than dropping the epsilon. Not dropping the epsilon, dropping the iota, which I think is what happens to this verb. So present, active, nope, not active, because we got the men changed to the stem. It's going to be deponent, participle. And the reason that this is going to be present, whereas this is aorist, is he gives thanks once, and he's done with that action, and we move on with diadoken. But anakemenois, they are still doing that, so it's the present progressive action. They are reclining still, reclining as at a meal. Then we enter our new clause, homoios, likewise. Since we have a likewise, the kai is going to become also. Ek, prepositional phrase, but that's not our verb. Ton, opsarion. Ek, going to take the genitive, plural, and then opsaria is the nominative plural, so it's opsarion in the singular, neuter, which I should have remembered from last page. Hoson, omicron nu, for accusative, singular, neuter again. And then here we finally have our verb. Note that the eta is an indication of an augmentation on the verb, and this is from thelo. So athelo is going to be imperfect off of the present stem because there's no change here. So, or am I getting that right? So that's thelo, thelo, ethela, or ethelon. I don't remember. maybe the eta is actually an indication that this is aorist rather than imperfect, because imperfect was what I was thinking initially. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to double check that, and I will return momentarily. I have returned. So my concern there is we have the eta rather than an epsilon. So the classical form of this verb is with the epsilon as on the present stem, so it would have been ethello. But the Koine version is just thello, the epsilon has vanished. So then when you're getting into the aorist tense or the imperfect tense, with imperfect it's just adding the augmenting vowel back to the beginning, which would typically just be the epsilon, not changing into an eta. But for the aorist, it would make sense for it to become a longer form of the E vowel, hence the eta. So I looked at it and I thought, maybe it's the aorist because it's longer here due to the dropout in Koine Greek. However, as one of those interesting things, it retains the length, I forget what the term is, but the length of the vowel from Attic Greek and the other dialects in Koine when you come to the imperfect tense. So this is imperfect. But another way of telling, which is what really should have been the clue for me, but I forgot the principal parts, is that the aorist is actually atheleso, or not atheleso, atheleson. So the eta sigma connection there. So third, plural because of own, it's not Jesus who's doing it. Not aorist. MPF, active, indicative. And it's imperfect because it's progressive action, as much as they were wanting throughout the meal. Moving on into verse 12 then. Hos de anepletheson. So alpha nu, and note also the theta eta sigma changed to the stem, so that's going to be a aorist passive form. Alpha nu though is the third person plural, aorist passive, indicative. So as they were filled, had become filled, lege epsilon iota for third, singular off of the present stem, leg, active, indicative, and one speaks to a dative or to the prepositional phrase pros. So tois mathetais, alpha iota sigma, dative, plural, masculine, as we have seen before, so I suppose I didn't need to. Autou, owning, mathetais. So he, being Jesus, says to the disciples, begin direct quote here, sun agagete. So epsilon, tau, epsilon, since he's speaking to his disciples, we have the tau, epsilon. It could just be, you are gathering, or really in this case, you gathered, but we know that hasn't happened yet, so it's going to be a command, and as we had the aorist previously, he does this as a one-time thing, so aorist again for this imperative. Second person plural, aorist because we have the extra ag, so this is from ago, whatever the future is, and then egagon, so egagete with the soon, a prefix changing the meaning, so ag would be lead, soon would be lead together to collect. Aorist. It's an interesting instance of reduplication in the aorist when that's something you expect from the perfect. And we know it's not perfect because of the epsilon here rather than the alpha there, which is what should happen with the perfect, in addition to not being quite the correct stem. And then we have our direct object, ta periseusan, but also with klasmata. This, you can tell from the new tau, is another preposition, the participle. So ta, accusative, plural, neuter. Periseuo, since we have the sigma, that's going to tell us that this can't be the present. If there were no sigma, if it were just periseuanta or something equivalent, what would that be? I think it would be periseuonto, onto omicron nu tau alpha rather than alpha nu tau alpha. Alpha being another indication of the aorist. Active participle, and then klasmata, got the right form there for the accusative plural neuter, and then klasma is fragments, periseu is things that are exceeding, so gather the, what we would say, we're going to have to change this a lot for it to fit into English, because English doesn't work properly the way that the Greek is working here. So gather what is in excess of the fragments, or what fragments are in excess, something along those lines, rather than the exceeding fragments, which just doesn't work in English. Hina, so that, with a may, so it's a lest in order that not, t, any, for nominative singular neuter, lest any, lest somewhat, apoletai. This is a aorist middle form, but it is also subjunctive middle because of the tau alpha iota, aorist because of the stem, no augmenting vowel. They're confirming with our eta the subjunctive. So that's third singular aorist. And this means to cause to be lost, to be destroyed, to die. So lest any be lost. Then on into verse 13, sun e gagon, we have now the augmenting vowel appearing at the beginning of this, telling us we're no longer in an imperative or in a subjunctive, so instead it's the indicative, the omicron nu, for third plural. Kai egemisan, this is from gamidzo, to fill, which is different from that one, so that's like to fill the belly, to be satisfied, but instead this is to fill, I think, just a box. It's possible that this is also used for eating somewhere else. I do not recall. But gamidzo, it's an idzo verb, so it's a causative, cause to fill. We don't have the iota zeta, instead we have iota sigma with an augmenting vowel alpha in our personal ending, so it's going to be an aorist. Again, to indicate a single action. Dodeca, 12, coffinus, that's a funny word, our word for coffin. This is just a container. But omicron iota sigma for accusative, plural, masculine. Dodeca can't decline, but it modifies that. And then klasmaton, omicron nu, so you fill something from or of a genitive. Genitive, plural, get the fragments. And klasmata is neuter. Ek, prepositional phrase. Ton, pente, arton. Pente, the 5. Arton is still masculine, but genitive, plural. So fragments of this, we get an interesting chain of genitives. Closing that, this would be, no, it can't decline either, but it's functioning as the same case number in gender because it's a adjective modifying arton. So just draw an arrow to that. Ton krithinun, so sorry, a prepositional phrase doesn't in there. I forgot about this. Krithinon is the type of bread it is, barley loaves. This is also going to be genitive, plural, and I think masculine as well. Note though, we have the 2 articles, but we don't have another article with pente. Instead, pente is sandwiched in there with the noun it's modifying. But we do have a second article here, so the 5 loaves, the barley ones. I think that's attributive position. Could be misremembering that. But moving on, ha from hos, feminine next, he, ho are relative pronouns. So ha can only be the neuter, plural, nominative, or accusative. Taking a look at our verb, eperiseusan, we've got that sigma and the augmenting vowel, again, to indicate we don't have the present stem, but instead we have the aorist stem and the alpha in the personal ending, confirming that for the third person, plural, aorist, because it's a one-time thing, active and indicative, and this means to be in excess, which, or in excess, makes a lot more than they were exceeding which. It can't really take a direct object, it's a transitive verb, I think is how that's used, but then it's taking that with reference to our dative, tois bibrokosin, omicron sigma iota nu, this third declension, but it is a participle, so this is from, according to my notes, bibrosco. So we have the perfect, because this iota has changed into an epsilon. If it were the aorist, then I think we would just gain an epsilon at the end of there, and the iota would not change. So it's the alteration of the vowel that indicates the stem to us. Also, there's no sigma before this kappa, and a kappa is a standard final letter for the perfect stem. So then, dative, plural, and this is a word for eating. So this is going to be talking about the people. So masculine, generic to encompass the entire crowd of 5,000 plus, probably 10,000 plus, honestly. Perfect, active, participle. What exceeded with reference to those who had eaten? Have eaten. Let's go ahead and take a look at this then in its own context. Therefore Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, or having given thanks, he gave to the ones reclining. Likewise also from the little fishes, how much they were wishing. And as they have been filled or sated, he says to his disciples, gather the excess of fragments, lest any be lost. Therefore they gathered and filled 12 baskets of fragments from the 5 loaves, the barley ones, which have been in excess, abounded to the ones having eaten. Well, thank you very much for joining me. I hope taking a look at this has been helpful for you, and I hope that you have a very good day. Farewell.